Hi and welcome to the first video on designing your presentation. And in this video, we're going to really dig into how to get your presentation started, designed, so that eventually you can end up with a full presentation that you deliver. Now, you're going to be designing essentially what we call a 90-minute presentation. And then you're going to be able to use this 90-minute design presentation for any kind of shorter speaking engagements that you have. So you might have an opportunity somewhere to speak for like 60 minutes or maybe 30 minutes, or occasionally you might get a really short spot for like 15 minutes or 5 or something like that. Either way, you'll be able to amalgamate your 90-minute signature speech into really any length that you want. And a little secret about how I develop out all of my live trainings is I essentially think in 2-hour chunks or 2-hour modules. And so once you get good at designing the 90-minuter, which could really stretch to an hour and 45 or 2 hours pretty easily by just adding a little more stuff in some different sections, then you really have the building blocks to actually design out your entire live event. So that's super cool. So that's why we're doing it this way. Now, you'll know that I don't believe in scripting, and I've said this many times, and I don't believe in scripting because I have witnessed the best presenters in the world really working on what I would call impulse. In other words, they're jiving off the audience. They have their toolbox. They have their routines. They have, they know their sections. They certainly have an outline, but they're not really planned word for word. They don't have something like memorized. Now, of course, this would fly in the face of things like politicians or really, really important speeches that every word must be, surgically engineered. And I just don't look at a sales presentation that way. I look at sales as being much more important to be present and engaged with your customer or customers in a group than actually worrying about every single word being right. So when I'm presenting, I will often say things that I maybe didn't mean to say, or a word here or there wrong, or I'll say something stupid, and you know what? I just let it go. However, I definitely have a very scientifically designed structure, and so I'm going to be helping you understand that. So it doesn't mean that at one time that people have never scripted their presentations, of course. It doesn't mean that I've never scripted a presentation. I certainly have. And funny enough, I don't know why I was so inspired to, but I actually scripted this. So I am using my script. But as you'll notice, I can't stick to a script because I just don't like it. I want to be able to extemporaneously vibe off of things. So having a script is fine. If you like to script, if it makes you feel comfortable, cool. We have historically, over years and years of working with speakers and trainers globally, found that women, on average, tend to be interested in higher preparation work than men do. And I have no idea why, and I'm not going to speculate, but that's just something we've noticed. So if you are a woman listening to this and you're going, but I would feel so uncomfortable if I didn't script out my presentation, well, then go for it. I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying I don't really believe it gives you the most effective sales presentation. So I'm not against scripting. I just find that ultimately people want an authentic, real human, and naturally that's not a scripted person. So like I said, to be transparent though, early on in my speaking career, I did script a lot of my presentations. I would write them out beforehand. Many times I used them to get my ideas out on paper, to organize little routines or modules or paragraphs or distinctions or whatever was important. And I did actually have those scripts on stage with me, but I learned quickly that I could not use a script because it required me to be too absorbed in it. And it caused me to put my attention on the material and not on the audience. And ultimately, that was not good. And if you've ever watched somebody read a script to you when you really wanted them to look at you, you know that that is a very painful experience to sit through as an audience member. So the most important place that you put your attention during a presentation is on the who? The audience. Okay, it's very, very important. Besides, you will learn what to say during a sales presentation. I mean, what to say in quotes. You're going to learn that what to say is not so much about teaching something or being really smart at something versus inspiring and exploring the beliefs that a person needs to believe to buy from you. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't script, but the point is that you're going to learn that what you probably thought was important or needed to be super accurate on is probably going to change. And you'll probably hear me say it 100 times during this program that your 90-minute presentation should not be designed to educate people, but rather educate them on how to buy from you and give them the experience of what it will be like when they do buy from you, because ultimately what people are really buying when they invest in themselves through you is they're buying the experience that they're having of you. So if the experience they're having of you is feeling like a robot or someone reading off a script, not going to go so well. Now, if you have scripted it and you've really got it under your bones and you're kind of making it your own, I understand. And having been a touring musician for many years and a performer, I do also understand what it means to greatly rehearse something and so you have it totally down and then go out and deliver that so you can focus just on the emotion and the dynamic delivery of it. So look, either way, you can do whatever feels most comfortable for you. Most importantly is you feel grounded and comfortable when you're presenting. So if that means you have a script up on stage for you, then cool. Just remember, of course, you have to keep your attention on them. So let's explore this for just a moment, what people are buying into, okay? Because as I just said, people are really investing in themselves through you. And what they're buying is the experience that they're having of you in the room when you're presenting to them. So people are buying into your system, okay? That's what they're buying into. This is the solution that you're presenting during your presentation. Everybody presents a system during their presentation. I have a presentation coming up this weekend. I am currently in Asia, in Kuala Lumpur, while I record this, and I'll be doing a presentation in front of several thousands of people, and you better believe during that presentation, I will be sharing my system. Now, I'm lecturing on starting up a business, and so I have a industry rockstar formula for becoming an industry rockstar in your startup business. So that's the formula, and it's got 9 steps, which is different than my regular industry rockstar formula that I've been teaching for years for people in business to accelerate their business, which has only 5 steps. Okay, so you will create your system. It's something you'll do as part of your presentation because you will have to have it, and it actually lives inside of your brand. So if you've never heard of this, you don't have a system, or you're new to this, or you want to refine your system, go find the Industry Rockstar Intensive videos on developing your system and go through those so you have good tools for that. So although they're buying into your system, what they're actually really buying is you. And every good salesperson would say the same thing. People buy me. That's what they're buying. So if you are absent, like your presence is not there, because you're in a script or you're running something in your head, like a fears or conversation or something, then you are missing them, meaning your audience, and they are missing you. And this absence will not produce good sales results for you. So you can rest easy that you're going to learn to work off of what I will keep calling impulse and not to be tied to a script. Besides, remember, for what you're doing, they're not expecting you to be the most slick keynote presenter in the world. They're looking for a real person with real solutions. They're not looking for a perfect robot. In fact, the more perfect you seem, actually, the harder it is to sell. And you'll see that as we get into the presentations deeper and deeper. So for right now, let's just jump into our first step in developing your presentation. Now in this program, like I said earlier, we're going to focus on what we call your signature talk or your 90-minute sales presentation. And it has a lot of different names out there. But this number 90 minutes is, look, it's been established for years, and it is essentially the amount of time you often get on stage as a guest speaker at someone else's stage. There is some science to it around the brains and the hemispheres of the brains and so forth, but let's not get into that. It's just a 90-minute sales presentation. As it turns out, I will be teaching you a structure that you can essentially swap in and out sections. So the structure I'm going to teach you of your 90-minute sales presentation, you can really use it to speak at almost any group, anywhere, and have a presentation that will both match the audience and sell into your program or product. Because remember, message to market match is very important. But you're going to learn a system where you can kind of swap things in and out so that you will forever have the tools to build your 90-minute sales presentations or 90-minute presentations. Now, since life is holographic, which means that all aspects of life can impact all other aspects of life, then once you understand the underlying concept of creating a presentation that sells, well, you can simply tweak the messaging and the material to match almost any audience anywhere. So let's start coming up with a few titles for a talk that you can give. At this stage, we want to just get creative and start to identify a few different talks that you give before we start to zero in and choose the one that you're going to really develop out for your signature talk. Now, typically, we will always work backwards from the offer, always. So let me say that again, because that's actually crucial to get. You're going to work backwards from the offer, whether you're building a 90-minute presentation or whether you're building a live event weekend. Since the point of profit speaking is to sell something, you're going to always start with the question in mind of, what am I offering? This means essentially what package are you selling? Is your call to action a one-on-one strategy with yourself, or is it a group coaching that you're selling? Are you selling a retreat? Is it a membership program? Is it a product? And so forth. So what I'd like you to do right now is take a moment to list out the package that you are going to offer. So go ahead and pause this recording and just make a list of what you're going to offer. Okay, great. Once you have that, now we want to name our presentation something along the lines of the result of your product. So let me give you an example. If I am offering a program on stage closing, then the results of learning stage closing could be something like make more money, or get paid to travel, or create a global impact, or learn how to move a room to take action, or anything like that, or anything else I can think of. So I could name my presentation how to move a room to tears, joy, and action. Or if I preferred to focus on a money message, I could name my presentation a 7-figure day at the office. Or if I preferred to focus on the travel outcome, my presentation could be named Get Paid to Take Holidays. Or I could be very direct with Master the Art of Profit Speaking, which is a lot less juicy, but a lot more direct. Now, I can even combine two of these titles for like a main title and a subtitle for this example. Get Paid to Take Holidays, Master the Art of Profit Selling. So let's just start to get a working title for your presentation by working backwards from the offer and naming it the results of what the customer is going to get when they invest in this solution. So start by doing this. Go ahead and pause the recording and start writing down what are a bunch of very specific outcomes that one can get from your program or from your coaching or your product or your service or whatever you're planning on selling. Remember, specific is really good and important, so feel free to get very specific. So go ahead and let's do that right now. Let's get a juicy list of 5 to 10 outcomes one could get. Also, they can be both tangible or emotional. And of course, I'm going to be a big fan of using a mixture of both tangible and emotional. Maybe using a title that's emotional and a subtitle that's more tangible so you cover both sides might be good for you. You'll notice that highly emotional outcomes or statements without grounded tangible connections, so highly emotional titles, well, they can cause your listener to load up a bit more skepticism. So for example, if the name of your presentation was Create a Life of Freedom, well, we have an emotional result, the experience of freedom. And it feels a little bit fluffy and not completely grounded or believable until you actually ground it in a pathway or a tangible result, like this. Create a Life of Freedom, how to become a mobile app developer. Now the listener can go, I get it. Now I know where she's going with this. So specificity is really the key. Okay, so go ahead and create your list of outcomes and then come on back for the next steps. Okay, so now we have some outcomes. So let's start playing with the titles of what you're talking to me about. And I'm totally happy if you have several different angles that you can talk about. In other words, your offer might be a one-on-one strategy session to sell someone into your private coaching. And then the result of that private coaching could be to change their romantic relationship with their spouse. So the outcomes you might have listed in that example could have been something like better communication, reduced arguments, deeper connection, or more sex, etc. So you could then have a title for a talk about communication, for example. And you could call it, for example, Lovers Loving Communication, how to increase effective communication with your spouse. And there you have a bit of an emotional main title and a tangible subtitle. Or you could have a talk from a totally different outcome titled Deep Dive Connections, Everlasting Fulfillment for Married Couples. Or finally, your talk could be titled something around the sex thing, which could be Satisfying Sex, Conscious Partnerships, Co-Creating Bliss. And these are simply just examples. Now, you'll notice that in my titles, I prefer a lot of alliteration. So, lots of C's, CCCC, or A's, or KKKK. And this is because we've tested titles with and without alliteration, online and offline. And the ones with alliteration always seem to convert higher using our online traffic and surveys that we've used. So it's just a little bonus tip, but it's something that I really like to use. Now, one of the questions you might be asking is, why do we select a title first? Is it that important? And the essence of it is that usually when you're crafting up a talk, you actually are going to start with the title because it's really going to define the overall conversation or the overall topic that everything else is going to follow to. So after we select a title, what we need to identify then is 3 to 5 main takeaways or bullet points that the audience will get. Now, these would be the main points or lessons that the audience can expect to learn from your talk. And these are really important for people like promoters, for audiences, of course, and for marketing. Naturally, the reality is we'd like to be inspired by your talk and most importantly, take action to engage with you for longer periods of time. And just know that you can only give people so much in 90 minutes. So the unfortunate reality is that your talk is not likely to cause any real sustainable change if you cannot move people to a more long-term integration. And that could just be several days together, that could be several weeks or months or years together. I mean, occasionally, of course, you're going to hear about someone that has had a really profound moment in one of your talks. And they're going to come up to you and tell you how your talk changed their whole life, okay, because of that one talk. In which case you're going to go, Kane was wrong. I couldn't give this inspirational talk and change lives. Now, this is awesome when that happens, but just to be honest, in all the years and hundreds of thousands of people, that has only happened, somewhere around like twice a year to me. And I speak to tens of thousands of people a year. So it's not really the best way to optimize for making a real impact with a largest percentage of the audience. You might get a couple of people that have a real profound ahas and follow through with it, but it's not really getting the majority of people in your audience. Now, the other reason to bullet point out value or takeaways, it's important because the promoter will want to ensure that the audience is not just going to be getting simply sold the whole time. You see, every promoter is really sensitive that their audience is not going to be like totally annoyed with a sales presentation, like a real hardcore sales presentation. And they usually call that hard selling. Now, since you're in this program, you're going to be trained to be a super fantastic seller. But there are a lot of horrible sellers out there. I've sat through a lot of their presentations. And they pretty much annoy the entire audience. And they basically give them no takeaways in their presentation. When we get more into creating your presentation, we're going to talk about how much content is enough and when the content should, be a lot more salesy. But for now, let's not worry about any of that. I just want you to simply list out 3 to 5 bullet points about your different titles. So go ahead and pause the recording and do that right now. 3 to 5 bullet points under each one of your titles that will give the main takeaways of that talk. Okay, so now you have a title and bullet points. And the only thing you need to do from here to start to identify your topic of your presentation is to write a short 6 to 8 sentence paragraph actually describing what that presentation is going to be about. So let me give you an example from sort of my box of presentations. Attached to this video, or I should say beside this video, is my older speaker kit. And we're going to talk about this speaker kit in future videos because you're going to create one. Now, this speaker kit is essentially a little bit like an information kit that you're going to put together to send to people when they want more formal information on you. In other words, they might be reviewing you as a speaker and they say, can you send me your speaker kit? Now, this one is getting a little bit of an older one. It's probably about 2 years old, which is not that old, but it's a couple of years old. Either way, it's still a great one. And honestly, I just stopped needing a speaker kit after a certain while because I was getting booked so constantly that I never really sent it out to anyone. So I never really updated it for just myself. And it contains, my old business partner and training partner, Jeff, in it. Now, maybe one day I'll update it. But anyway, if you look in there, you can see the talks that we have written down for promoters to see. Now, to be honest, 9 times out of 10, we would create a custom talk for each presentation. But we still sent this out, and it gave the promoters a real sense of groundedness that we had presentations ready to go. You'll see as you learn my modular presentation design that you will easily be able to swap in and out sections and have different presentations. However, it's really good to start with a few that you get nailed down. Now, I want you to be clear so that I don't confuse anyone. You are building one 90-minute signature presentation in this program, but typically it's common to have a few different topics that you could speak about and maybe end up having a few different 90-minute presentations. But here's the trick. My preference is that most of your 90-minute presentations, if you have 2, 3, or 4 of them, are essentially about 75 to 80% the exact same, with literally just a section or 2 of different content that you swap in and out to suit the particular topic or audience. And you'll really understand this more and more as we keep going further and I start to decode the 90-minute presentation for you in future training videos. So for now, let's just stay focused on getting a few titles, bullet points, and 1 paragraph description of what you can speak about for each one. My preference would be that you have 3 to 5 titles, descriptions, and bullet points for 3 to 5 different talks. Okay? Cool. Now, you ready for the big gotcha? Well, once you get those done, I want you to send them out to everyone you know, all of those talks, and tell them that you're looking for speaking engagements, and these are the topics you can speak on. And then see what response you get. Okay? Post anything you want reviewed on the forum, whether it's your titles, or your paragraphs, or your bullet points, if you'd like that, and just post, let us know how things are going. Okay? Have fun with those. Get your presentation title, paragraphs, and bullet points down, and then go ahead and send them out. That's your homework from this particular lesson. Get them sent out to people in your database, in your phone, and your email. Share with them the topics you could speak about, and let them know that you are looking for speaking engagements.